Yep, any final presentations, like final presentation questions before we move on to the presentations? And at the Q&A session, if you are, oh wait, there's a question in the chat. If there are two presenters, should the second presenter raise their hand only before their slides or at the beginning? Please raise your hand at the beginning and keep your hand there until the end of the presentation so that when it's time that we can switch. Or actually just like unmute both of them at the same time. And please be quiet for the first half of the presentation when the first person is speaking. Now that I think about it, there might be a transition issue with the Zoom chat.
Are you asking us to raise our physical hand or raise the hand?
No, to raise the hand in the participants function.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, this is the raise hand function in the participants tab.
Even saying the next slide is fine, right? If we can say it, like
yes.
That would be more. Okay,
yeah. We're just asking you to please be patient if the slides don't load within the next like 1 second.
So for the Q&A, members of the team as well as the presenter can answer questions, right?
Yes, for the Q&A, anyone in the team can answer questions. To minimize time conflict, we'll just allow any team member who can answer the question to unmute themselves and then answer it on the
So
spot.
raise hand and everything.
So for that, you don't need to raise hand.
All right.
Only for the presenting.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you.
And if you are not the team that the question is being asked to, please remain quiet and muted for that section.
Thank you, Rachel. So my teammate Kelsey and I are gonna be Hygieia Health. So do we raise our hands now?
Yes, you would raise your hands now. And Healy, our other lead for this track, should unmute you.
Yep. Okay, so you're unmuted. So we're gonna go ahead and start with your slides, assuming, Kelsey, do you have a question?
Oh, nope. I was just raising my hand because I thought that was what I was supposed to do.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, are you also a presenter?
Yes.
Yeah, we have
okay, perfect. So you're both unmuted. So we're going to go ahead and start. Here you go.
So hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. We are Hygieia Health, and we provide a platform for Alzheimer's disease patients and their family members to slow down the progression of the disease together. In the United States, about 5.5 million people have Alzheimer's disease. And this is projected to grow up to 8 million people by year 2050. And their caregivers, usually their family members, also have higher risks. Research has shown that a variety of lifestyle factors can help delay the progression and reduce the risks of the disease, such as physical exercise, healthy diet, mental activities, and socializing. So we at Hygieia Health, our mission is to provide a platform for Alzheimer's disease patients and their caregivers to access to a service network that may help them slow down the progression of the disease and reduce risks. And they can use the platform to learn about their disease and receive training, join online lifestyle programs, social activities, and track their health metrics. Here is how it works. Patients and their caregivers can sign up on our platform to access to a network of online and local programs that may benefit their health and monitor their health online. The platform offers 3 major benefits. It's a turnkey solution. It's only $19 a month, lower than your copay, and it is empowering population health research of large size that may lower the benefit, that may later benefit the patients themselves.
To launch this product, we're going to remain focused on 3 main areas. The first is building out a strong network by contracting with providers, health coaches, and the wellness companies we're going to partner with. The second is to secure the tools and devices, which we are going to send to patients upon enrollment to track their health metrics. And the third is to develop this customer-friendly integrated platform. From a marketing perspective, our primary audience is, you can go to the next slide, is going to be the providers who are going to be able to refer these early stage and at-risk Alzheimer's disease patients to us, but we're also going to make sure that we have a strong presence online. Next slide. From a business case perspective, we project annual profits of $24 million while still keeping the costs extremely low to the patient. So thank you for listening. This is a huge problem that we're facing both in the US and worldwide. And we truly believe that taking a more preventative approach and using data and technology in doing so really offers huge potential in the Alzheimer's disease market. Thank you.
Okay, that was exactly on time. So if judges would like to ask questions now, you guys have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so my first question is you use a lot of words like reduce, improve, and my mind automatically goes to quantifying something. So is there a specific activity that through your study or through your initial findings that it helps improve or decrease or slows regression, one over the other?
So I think I can answer this question. At this moment, there are some research that's showing exercises and a healthy diet and also certain cognitive training programs can help reduce, slow down the progression of the disease. But at the same time, the beauty of our platform is that we are also developing an online population health research platform in the backend that can do further research on what exactly are those activities that can benefit the patients and their caregivers over the long term if they commit to our services.
Tyler and Kelsey, great job. This is Uzair. Rashid, you mentioned a device cost of $250. I have basically two questions here. One is, which types of devices would be measuring key metrics around Alzheimer's? And then the second part of the question is, you've mentioned preventative a few times. And preventative, I feel like, is proactive in identifying Alzheimer's prior to it actually being a condition. So can you speak on the devices and then the prevention methods or levers built into the platform?
Sure. So I'd like to, Cassie, if you don't mind, I can address this.
Sure.
So basically for prevention, there are 3 levels: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So we are focusing on the secondary and the primary maybe. And also for the tracking device, we may have multiple devices. We may have a multiple.
That was the end of 2-minute Q&A. I'm sorry, we do have to cut it off just to be on schedule. And yeah, could you move to the next slide? But thank you for your presentation. And your presentation was right on time. So thank you for keeping that in 3 minutes. Next team is ReaLife. And the coming up team after ReaLife is my physio. So if you guys want to get ready as well. And we'll give like 30 seconds to 1 minute for judges to finish filling out their Google Forms or evaluations. Yes?
We need team numbers for that, please.
Oh, okay. I will be reading off team numbers. The team that has just presented. Sorry about that. We did not account for.
We were 030, if that's helpful.
Oh, okay. Actually, that's
Thank you.
easier. Could the team please repeat their number after their presentation is over?
Okay.
How do I
Just to clarify,
access
that's team_B_030. Yeah.
How do I access my form for scoring?
It should have been sent to you in judge training.
But to get it on this screen.
I think there should be a form in the judging channel of the Slack channel.
Okay, do we want to start with ReaLife then?
Yep, if the judges are ready.
If you could give us about 30 seconds, that would be great.
Okay, that sounds good.
Can you tell me one more time the team number for Hygieia, please?
It was team number 30.
So are you asking our team number? Oh,
Yes, I was asking the team number for Hygieia. The
okay.
per-
Kelsey just sent it. We are 30.
Yeah, team_B_030. I just posted it in the chat as well.
Okay, are judges ready? And is the team ReaLife ready to present?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yes.
Okay, we'll start unmuting the presenters and go on to the next slide. I'll start the 3-minute timer when you guys start talking.
Okay, hello. I want to start by telling you guys the story of our teammate Angelica and her mom. Angelica's mom suffered from heart failure, and like the other 800,000 patients with heart conditions, every heart specialist will recommend that she start cardiac rehab to help her live longer and healthier. Yet, for a treatment so effective, 3 in 4 patients do not seek rehab. Why? Patients often face a difficult journey. Rehab is expensive. It's inconvenient. Imagine having to drive hundreds of miles to reach a rehab clinic. This problem is only expected to grow as more baby boomers start facing cardiac problems. However, moreover, with the COVID-19 lockdown, patients are finding it increasingly difficult to get the life-saving rehab that they need. Next slide. So this is where ReaLife comes in. We want to create a precision home rehab experience to encourage more patients to start and continue their cardiac rehab. Next slide. We draw on the principles of traditional in-person cardiac rehab, consisting of exercise, lifestyle modifications, and psychosocial support. So our exercise function uses variables and motion capture to ensure that patients are exercising at a safe and correct intensity. Patients can choose to connect with their usual rehab clinic or follow our virtual instructions. In terms of psychosocial support, we create a customizable pet to engage and motivate patients to take care of them. Finally, through collected data, we can provide personalized lifestyle advice. Why we are very excited about this solution is because we are providing an engaging, convenient, and cost-effective way for patients to attend their cardiac rehab. Next slide. Our solution aims to be data-driven and HIPAA compliant. We are collecting data from clinically validated SF-36 forms and our digital wearable device. We then plan to apply our AI software to create a personalized health report and lifestyle plan. Next slide. This is our total addressable market. Cardiac rehab is a $1.63 billion market, which is only expected to increase. Next slide. We want to help cardiac patients, and that's why we can offer ReaLife to patients for free and through their interactions, gather valuable clinical data. The ReaLife platform can be distributed by a healthcare provider who sees us as a way to get 70% of their patients who are currently not going or missing their rehab sessions. Instead, we rely on 2 revenue models. First, analytics as a service, and second, subscriptions from insurers and employers. Next slide. We have a successful strategy that we'll be happy to go into details later. Next slide. And our team is a diverse one from various backgrounds. Yet we are united because we believe in this shared vision to make cardiac rehab accessible and engaging for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go straight into our Q&A.
Yep. This is Uzair once again. Great presentation. Quick question would be, I'm on a board for a virtual rehab company, and one of the most difficult parts is the operationalization of getting devices, or it looks like this is mobile VR or mobile AR that you guys would be doing. Have you thought through, is this a leased device that you're giving to a patient for measuring their heart rate and key biometrics? And what would that look like?
Right, that's a great question. So for us, we are both utilizing the smartphone app and also a commercially available device that can measure key metrics such as heart rate, blood pressure, and also how the patient is doing. So this is how we plan to operationalize our design.
This is Marjorie. I have a question. I'm curious about the rationale behind the pet and how you came to that and why you feel that would be successful.
So the reason why we chose a pet is because we find that user engagement, actually really engaging the patient, is a key factor in ensuring that patients continue with their follow-up and treatment. So our idea for the pet is that they take care of the pet and the pet in turn takes care of them. So through this engagement, they're more engaged in their treatment, and they feel like there's someone like a companion looking out for them when they're continuing their cardiac rehab.
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned analytics as a service. When you're talking about getting and exchanging patient data and information, so do you have any intentions of like maybe partnering with like an integrator, like a Redox or something like that? Because it just seems that it would be kind of a strong uphill battle to kind of create a service and then expect everyone to adopt to it.
Okay, that was the end of time. I'm so sorry. We have to keep in schedule, so that was the only way. But yeah, judges, please take 30 seconds or so to fill out your forms. And the next team,
number?
What was the team number? Could you guys repeat that?
15.
15. Team number 15. So it would be 015.
Thank you.
And the next team, which is my physio, can get ready for their presentation. And please raise your hand in advance if you are a presenter.
Yeah, so we're ready. So next slide.
We'll start in like 30 seconds just to give judges time to catch up on their Google Forms. Okay, is everyone ready to move on?
And I'll take the next slide as well, please, then.
Okay.
So 50% of Americans over 18 will develop a musculoskeletal injury. Physiotherapy is in person, it's time consuming, and rehab requires unsupervised exercise at home and done correctly. So the biggest challenges are adherence, feedback, and patient engagement. Next slide. Current virtual therapy systems either lack accurate position recognition or do not provide real-time feedback, nor do they successfully engage the user to ensure full adherence. To address this, we present MyPhysio. It's a service that optimizes patient compliance and safety. Live feedback and gamification motivates the patient to adhere to their prescribed regimen. Next slide. MyPhysio patients are shipped an inexpensive set of equipment on loan, which comprises 2 webcams and a pressure-sensitive mat. Next slide. Our platform guides the user through each exercise and provides live feedback on technique. For squats, for example, accurate skeletal tracking enables evaluation of squat depth better than existing platforms. A pressure mat assesses proper distribution of weight through each leg. Our innovation introduces a system of audible classical conditioning clicks to teach the patient to do the exercise correctly. Gamification of this system motivates progress and improved technique. Here we use a simple basketball game where good technique is rewarded by successful throws. Next slide. If technique is suboptimal, the free throw is not made and the user is provided with specific feedback to improve their technique. Next slide. Further feedback and positive reinforcement is provided to the user via tracked progress between sessions. Next slide. Our solution is low cost compared to repeated visits, less than $200 per recovery. Its target buyers are ACOs, insurance companies, and employers, and they will realize lower recovery time, lower visit costs, and re-injury risks for their risk pool. To accommodate the expected usage, the product lifecycle begins with a prescription, after which we deliver the equipment needed. After the patient's recovered, they simply ship it back, which allows us high margins on capitalized costs of equipment. Next slide. The first step in our roadmap is to develop a working prototype, and initially we'll focus on a single use case. We'll implement a virtual exercise model based on a standard program for ACL injuries, and for each exercise, we'll determine the limits for pose and pressure distribution. We also want to implement flags for operant conditioning feedback mapped to the exercise model. And finally, we'll implement the platform and game that sets rewards based on the output of the exercise model. Ultimately, we want to empower patients to recover quickly and completely. We want them to achieve this at an affordable cost with the convenience and comfort of their own home. We are the answer. We are MyPhysio. So thank you very much. Next slide.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Now we'll move straight on to Q&A.
Yep.
Any questions from?
Yeah, this is Uzair again. And I appreciate you guys clarifying that you're hyper-focusing on a single condition for ACL injuries. I think the same question that I gave to Team 1, operationalizing, sending out webcams and getting them back is going to be incredibly difficult. And you might want to consider something like mobile AR to prove out the solution, that people can use things that they already have. Have you guys thought through interoperability? So how you might be exchanging progress someone's making on this platform with their health system that they had their surgery at for their ACL repair?
Yes, I think, well, in response to kind of your first point, I think that people are growing more used to the loan of equipment, whether it's a black box that's put into their car for car insurance, or whether it's a modem that their internet service provider lends them and then they're asked to send it back afterwards. In response to your secondary question in terms of interoperability, I think it's a standalone product that doesn't completely, or at this stage, we wouldn't expect it to completely integrate with electronic health records necessarily, but it's there.
Chris, I think we can actually, it would be pretty easy to look at, very major EHR portals and connect to them via FHIR or some other method, Epic's portal or Cerner's portal, for example, and send the progress data at least to those portals.
And Prayag, you're referring to like App Orchard and building out APIs there, type of thing. Okay.
Okay, that is all the time we have for Q&A. Could Team MyPhysio please say their numbers aloud for reference?
Yeah, we're 25, so B25.
Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. The next team is Qtane, and coming up after Qtane is Acc-Tech.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, just let me know when I can start.
Judges, are you guys ready to move on to the next team?
Yes.
Ready.
Okay, that sounds good.
And you can see my video too, right?
We haven't gotten to your slides yet?
Yep, we can. We can see your video.
Oh, okay. Okay, sounds good. All right, start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi, everyone. We are Team Qtane, and we're empowering patients to take control of their skin health. Next slide, please. The specific problem we tackled is that patients and dermatologists lack sufficient data to understand, manage, and treat keratosis pilaris. KP is a pervasive problem that affects 50 to 80% of adolescents and 40% of adults. Next slide. We've developed a solution that empowers consumers to understand and effectively manage their KP. Our solution has 3 components. First, a content platform which will help with SEO and drive traffic. Second, our core product is an app for tracking KP over time. And third, we will leverage our app to develop a robust data set from the Qtane community to help better understand KP. Next slide. We will assess KP using 4 metrics. The first 2 utilize novel sensor technology, while metric 3 uses photos to create a timeline of the condition, and metric 4 uses self-reported improvement scores to gauge how the condition progresses over time. Next slide. We plan to differentiate by using phone sensor functionality that is feasible on existing smartphones, but not currently being utilized, including optical and non-optical imaging techniques. We will initially focus on capacitance and PPG technology. In the future, we may also leverage infrared and high-resolution ultrasounds if they become widely available on cell phones. Next slide. Looking at the competitive landscape, we identified a number of companies that overlap with our market. But as you can see from the check marks, our product is uniquely differentiated from competitors in most areas. Next slide. Here we can see a prototype. We've developed a minimalist, user-friendly prototype that includes a self-assessment dashboard. With our app, users can easily track and manage their skin health over time. Next slide. Our business model will initially focus on our beta customers, teens and young adults for two main reasons. One, they are disproportionately affected by KP, and two, they are generally more willing to adopt new technologies. In the medium to long term, as we expand beyond KP to the entire $70 billion dermatology space, we'll be able to monetize relationships with hospitals, pharma companies, and dermatologists. Next slide. Meet the brains behind Cutane. We have industry expertise spanning medicine, bioresearch, computer programming, and business development. Next slide. In terms of next steps, we plan to validate market demand through user interviews, recruit more engineering expertise, develop content, and build our MVP. Thank you for your time. KP is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity that's currently underserved, and we have a solution. What questions do you have for us?
Yeah, so is there any specific skin disease that I guess the patient or the dermatologist tend to want to focus on more like eczema, whether it's high levels of treatment where the patient would, find this beneficial to, hire or have this solution?
Absolutely. We have a short list of 24 common skin conditions which make up the majority of drug costs and treatment costs in the health system for dermatology. And our initial plan is to start with KP, which is very, very like eczema, which is again another very common skin condition. And the two of them, and we focus specifically on KP initially, simply because it is very, very common and an underserved market, and the user group who are predominantly teens and young adults who are renowned as early adopters of new technologies.
So this is a really trending and growing space. And one of the key slides I think you might have zipped past a little too quickly was how you're differentiated. So can you speak to like the three main ways that you differentiate against the competition?
Yeah, so the primary way is the integration of novel imaging techniques, both optical and non-optical. I suppose the core focus of this business is, as Claire outlined, the integration of skin capacitance and photoplethysmography, or PPG, which is used in a limited capacity for pulse detection that you might be aware of on most mobile phones. These are currently available on every commodity smartphone on the market. Two additional, which are on newer generation mobile phones, are the use of infrared camera and also the use of ultrasound, high frequency ultrasound, which is the new Qualcomm chip that you see on to unlock the sub-screen ultrasound used to unlock your current smartphone.
That was the end of time for Q&A. Thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're team 45, so 045.
So next up is Acc-Tech, and coming up after Acc-Tech is Moving, Elizer. So both teams should be getting ready. And Acc-Tech, could you please raise your hand, or have you already raised your hand?
Hello. Yeah, this is Vaishnavi. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Wait, can I start?
Are judges ready to move on to the next team?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll move to the next slide. Start presenting when you are ready, and I'll start the timer then.
Okay, I'll start right now. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Hope everyone is doing good. This is Team Acc-Tech. We are here to come up with something that would leverage connected technologies to improve patient care and easily available source for base. Next. For this, we are here with a number of smart tech accessories like smart goggles, wristband, silicone ring, and mask. Any of these could be used according to the user's choice. All are embedded with same sensors. Next. We came up with a solution by taking the base for decision making as skin perspiration, or in simple words, analysis of sweat, because it is an easily collectible biofluid which hosts a broad range of biomarkers. It can be used for monitoring of patients suffering from diseases like tuberculosis, schizophrenia, and other infectious disease for branches like oncology, nephrology, including 8 others. It will be connected to an app that would be easily personalized according to one's need. Next, in today's situation, it is totally fine to forget your wallet, but not your mask. It's recommended to not to touch your eyes, nose with bare hands. So this makes our product business effective. Now that makes us focus more on the design of mask and the goggles. Next slide, please. Design for the mask has pulse oximeter at its nostrils and sweat sensing patches on the mask. We have got an SOS option as well using airdrop technology for emergency purposes. Next, please. Goggles has got the sweat sensor at the nostril support and pulse oximeter at its end, followed by SOS touch sensors. These sensors are easily collaborated in other design, followed by next, the design of band. Next, please. Yeah, next. Design of ring. Next, please. This slide, we can see the smart links. Next. Coming to the cost of the products, smart masks and goggles will be around $8. For band and ring, it's $6 and $15 each. Next, this could be used by a number of group. Our product is unique because these wearables aren't confined to the step counts. It's backed up with fingerprint sensors to make sure that the correct individual is wearing. That increases the uniqueness. The base of determination is so natural that the user will not have to pierce their skin or carry anything. Its SOS technique allow the user to be safe whenever they are in crowd of unknowns. These products will help good indications on time for users. Next slide, please. Next. Thank you. We are good to go with the questions. For this, I would like my friend Ravi to take over.
Thanks. Hey, Ravi. This is Marjorie, one of the judges. My first question, I guess, is that it was a little bit difficult to discern from the presentation what the problem is you're trying to solve. And I apologize for not catching that, but I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on what your goal is.
Ma'am, our main purpose is to come up with wearable technology whose base is good enough and easily available, and that is sweat. That is the reason why we are using sweat analysis, so that we don't have to pierce our blood, and the judging can be done in so natural manner, so that like they don't have to do anything, because sweat is something so psychological which comes out at any, like it's been observed through researches that every time our body secretes some fluid is dependent on the situation. So I think that makes our project unique, and this is the main thing that we are focusing on. And this gives a broad idea. And for further, Ravi, please continue.
Yeah, Ravi and Vaishnavi, this is Uzair.
Ravi? Yeah, yes, sir.
I would, this is more of a suggestion than a question. One would be, it would be, this is almost like a boil the ocean approach, where you might want to hyper focus on a single condition for an MVP that your wearables are solving for. And then also, I think the fulcrum on which the success of the program would rest is, the platform that is aggregating, synthesizing, cleansing, and making sense of the data that's coming onto it. So just some things you might want to think about, or maybe you have thought about it.
Yeah. Ravi?
I agree. I feel that you gave an elaborate description of a solution for which I am not sure of the story behind the problem.
But we just wanted to make an evolution in the wearable technologies using sweat so that it's easily available for diseases like infectious diseases like tuberculosis, diabetes, and all those other diseases as well.
Okay, that was the end of the time for Q&A. The next team is Movealizer. So if you guys could.
What was the team number for that last one?
Oh yeah, what was the team number? Could you guys repeat it? Could one of the team members who just presented unmute yourself and repeat the number of your team? Okay, I just looked it up in the sheet. It is team 016.
Yeah, this is team 16. B16. 16.
Okay, presenters for Movilizer, are you guys ready?
Hi, can you guys hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, we're here.
Okay, then we will move on to the next slide and start when you guys are ready. I'll start the timer soon. When you're ready, start presenting and I'll time
Yeah,
the...
go ahead. Start.
Hi, we're Team Movilizer. I'm Ibtisam, a computer science student in my senior year, and I'm here with Muntasir Saeed, a second year PhD student. Next slide, please. So Movilizer addresses the problem of remote patient care and stress awareness. COVID has proven that remote patient care is highly essential and and there are several challenges that are yet to be addressed. Hidden stress is something that a majority of the population suffer from. Our product addresses both of these issues and finds a convenient solution to both of them. Next slide, please.
So what we have here as a solution is a smart wearable device, which is like a Fitbit. So it's a wristwatch type, it's rechargeable, it is battery powered, and the thing that distinguishes us is we have hot swappable interconnections for attaching a bunch of peripherals that make it truly a multifunctional device. We also have wireless data transmission with multimodal data transmission, such as Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Next slide, please.
Okay, it is estimated that the market size for remote patient care will reach $25.31 billion by 2023. Our revenue model revolves around the direct sales of the product to hospitals, nursing homes, care facilities, and etc. Our value proposition is data that we obtain from monitoring patients remotely. This will be used for further medical research. Next slide, please.
The functionality that we incorporate into our wearable are pretty much everything you can get on the market today, which includes step counters, falls detection, heart rate, blood oxygen saturation, as well as things which are not commonly available, such as audible alerts, data recording for certain activities, real-time alerting, galvanic skin response sensing, as well as minutiae of movement tracking. Next slide, please.
Our wearable device comes with a cross-platform React Native app that allows doctors to remotely monitor their patients effectively and efficiently. This can also be extended to general users who can track their stress levels and customized sensors on their wearable device. Next slide, please.
So these are images of the prototype that we developed today. So in the last 24 hours, we've actually
Sorry, that is the end of time for presentations. But you guys still have 2 minutes for Q&A, which will start now.
Is the assessment of the GSR something that has already been realized and tested?
Yeah, so if you take a look at our prototype, we do have a GSR sensor, and we have the electrodes embedded into the into a little fabric sleeve that goes over the fingers. And the difference between our device and something like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch is it's not it's an open source hardware platform. So all these peripherals are hot swappable. So you basically can plug in your GSR sensors in for some time when you're taking the readings, and you can take it off and just wear it like a regular wristwatch.
This is Hazim here. So you're basically managing anxiety, but all the measurements you've mentioned, does your application quantify those to come up with an anxiety level? And does it give the patient any, or it's not a patient, it's most people around the world, so COVID. Does it give
So
any?
yeah, so there are some readings that that are taken like on board without any adding any peripherals. So things like heart rate monitoring, step monitoring, fall detection, pulse oximetry. This stuff is on board. Things like the GSR response, as well as some other. In fact, there are some other readings we didn't mention here. Can be plugged in or like hot swappable with the interface that we have on our device.
Yeah, how is this measurement actually influencing patient behavior? I think the main indicator for anxiety is the GAD-7 as a screener, and then depression is the PHQ-2 and 9. Like how is aggregating this information and feeding it to a provider in a separate platform influencing behavior in a positive way?
I'm sorry, the time is up and there's no time to actually answer that question. We do have to move on to the next team.
What's the team number, please?
It's 0100.
So yeah, that was team 100. The presenters for next team, SmartSock, could you please raise your hand? And the next team after SmartSock will be MyBirth Prep. So you guys can also get ready.
If the team could be asked to give their number at the beginning of the presentation, it would save time filling out the form because we have to scroll back up to it otherwise.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware of the form structure. All right,
Thank you.
What is the team number for SmartSock? Could you guys repeat that?
We're team 14, 014. 14, yeah.
Okay, are judges ready?
Yes.
Okay, we'll start whenever you guys are ready.
All right, you can, next slide. All right. Hi everyone, we are Team SmartSock. Next slide. We aim to tackle, next slide. We aim to tackle peripheral artery disease, or PAD, a debilitating disease due to the gradual buildup of atherosclerotic plaque in the leg arteries, like the posterior tibial angiosome, where blood flow is jeopardized. The worst case scenario is total occlusion, acute ischemia, and amputation. So why is this a problem? Well, 8.5 million Americans have PAD. Treatment in the US costs $21 billion annually and accounts for 20% of US hospital admissions. Next slide. These are the three main techniques physicians use to follow up when treating patients with PAD. And notice how none of these solutions offer an easy solution for the patient from the comfort of their own home, especially during a time with COVID-19. Next slide. Changing lifestyle and diet helps with, but then exercise is most important. PAD patients usually can walk for a few meters and then they need to stop due to pain. Hence, they might give up exercising and lose mobility. So we introduced SmartSock. We aim to monitor both circulations and exercise patterns. This device tracks maximum steps taken for each interval using an accelerometer. As well, we have added temperature sensors along the length of the leg to detect abnormalities in blood flow and exercise patterns, which would be detected by the algorithm and sent to clinicians and care team. And the patient will be alerted. Next slide. And this is our app mock-up to supplement the physical sock. Next slide, please.
For our go-to-market strategy, we want to start by partnering with the VA before we do any D2C. Up to 900,000 veterans have PAD right now, and we know that the VA has been very involved with PAD-related research. So many veterans could benefit from SmartSock, dramatically saving costs associated with hospitalizations and amputations. A long-term goal afterwards would then be to enter into partnerships with nursing homes and finally going direct to consumer. Next slide. As for our competition, there's no product like this on the market like SmartSock. The only comparison we can make is with clinical validation that has been done of smartphone-based activity tracking for PAD. Therefore, SmartSock has an enormous market potential with a value of $5.1 billion US. Next slide. So in addition to the standard steps and distance tracking, SmartSock also monitors temperature and blood flow and uses all of this to identify ischemic patterns and predict any worsenings of the disease. This simply can't be done with smart wearables. SmartSock is also a game changer because it is able to notify the patient ahead of time before it's too late via mobile integration and notification. And on top of that, there's also the comfort and convenience, which will save the US $300 million in avoidable PAD procedure costs. SmartSock will pave the way for a new non-invasive and easy monitoring system for PAD, and we hope you will join us in fighting this disease one sock at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go straight into Q&A.
Yeah, this is their really, really well laid out presentation. I understand the VA play. Have you guys considered a different route to market, and maybe through something like addressing the Medicaid population and selling it to a plan that can help you? I think one of the, and then the second part of the question is, have you thought through like proving the efficacy of this tool through like clinical trials?
Mm-hmm. So I can definitely speak with the go-to-market, and then perhaps Bernardo can speak more on kind of efficacy and the studies that have been done. We chose the VA because the Veterans Affairs, they're very involved with PAD-related research. They've just recently completed a study with the University of Pennsylvania and Stanford University, and they have over 900,000 veterans with PAD. And like you saw earlier, we can save lots of costs by avoiding amputations and procedures as well. The VA just recently partnered with Podometrics, which is also targeting foot ulcers. So, this is a condition that also affects, the older population with the veterans. So that's something we really want to target. In terms of other possible partnerships, we're looking at, nursing chains of nursing facilities and homes across the country because of that elderly population. And Bernardo has also mentioned in other countries we're partnering with the National Institute of Health in that specific region. But we are mainly focused on, for our initial MVP, kind of working with the VA to see how this can roll out. Bernardo can speak a little bit more on the efficacy side.
Yeah, the validation could be done by the claudication patients. We have a lot of trials that can measure the claudication by walking on the path and using the sock to have metrics, exactly what the patient's feeling, not just what the doctors are asking. So the validation could be done.
Can the technology be integrated into the compression socks that you wear?
That was the end of time for Q&A. I'm so sorry for cutting everyone off. So that was SmartSock Team 14. And next up is MyBirth Prep. So please, presenters for MyBirth Prep, raise your hand on Zoom.
I'm actually gonna go, I think it's just easier, unmute yourself at the appropriate time and just ask me to do next slide. The raising hand is getting a little difficult. If you want to use it, fine, but I'd say default, just unmute yourself and tell me when to switch to the next slide.
Okay, I'm gonna use that approach. We are Team MyBirth Prep and we are Team 009. Will you let me know when to start? Oh, we're starting.
Yep.
Okay, we are Team 009, MyBirth Prep, and we care about improving outcomes for pregnant people, and we won't stop until every mother is well. Slide. If the United States had a wearable to track its maternal health systems, it'd say that we're in pretty bad shape. Over 50,000 Americans a year experience severe pregnancy-related injury or death, and this number has been on the rise for decades. What's worse, over half of these incidents are entirely preventable, which is not only costly for families, but for their insurers. NGOs, nonprofits, and even Congress has attempted to solve this issue, but nothing has worked on a wide scale, and nothing has integrated successfully with our fee-for-service healthcare system. Slide. So we went to the literature. Here's what we found. Our team's health scholars found that there are 3 unique endpoints we can measure to track and promote a pregnant person's potential for good birth outcomes. First is health tracking. Exercise, meditation, breathing practices, and sleep habits can all be tracked by most wearables and are all linked to good birth outcomes. Second is birth literacy, increasing birth education and awareness so informed patients can advocate for themselves. And finally, peer support, which provides a sense of community and a sense of accountability. So what if we could marry all 3 of these components into a seamless, user-friendly interface geared specifically to pregnant women? Slide. We combined these into MyBirth Prep, a smartphone app which easily integrates with a woman's existing Fitbit or other wearable device. You can think of MyBirth Prep as a friendly pregnancy Facebook group meets Strava meets Duolingo for birth literacy, but it's an evidence-based offering. And it's going where no other pregnancy app or birth outcome solution has gone before. With weekly and monthly fitness goals, community interactions, gamified birth education, and a journal function to record thoughts and notes you want to share with your care provider, MyBirth Prep empowers its users to prepare for a happy, healthy, and positive birth experience. By reducing bad birth outcomes, we will not only save lives, but we will save insurance companies billions of dollars each year. Now, 4 million women give birth in the US each year, and 1/4 of these women already own a wearable health tracker. We intend to partner, with smart insurers like Blue Cross Blue Shield, who already understand that value-based healthcare like this have very real financial incentives, and they in turn will cover the app either as a standalone or a package with a wearable. Because our data is anonymized and stored on a secured server, users can trust their health information is safe, and insurers will save money on the unnecessary birth interventions. They'll further be able to analyze the app data so they can provide the most efficient maternity services. We are a public health professional, a birth researcher, labor and delivery nurse, product designer, business development strategist, software engineer, and mechanical engineer. Together, we are MyBirth Prep, and we won't stop until every mother is well. Thank you.
Thank you. That was right on time. Let's go straight into the Q&A.
So I have a question. What is your, what would you believe be your first initial customer segment? Meaning what particular women or ethnic group? Because there was a lot of things that you said in there, and my first thing went to the challenges with African-American women and healthy and successful birth and the lack of education to the African-American woman to make sure that she does have healthy birth.
I love that you brought that up, and especially because African-American women and Native women die at 4 times the rate of white women in the United States. Now, because there is such a high distrust of the medical community among individuals of color in the United States at this time, what we wanted to do was pitch this app across insured individuals across all ethnic groups in order to make sure that we are creating a really widespread function. Because even though those women of color and people of low socioeconomic circumstances experience the worst birth outcomes, everyone can still benefit from an app like this.
This is Hazem. I just wanted to ask if you have researched the competition and how would you differentiate yourself from the competition?
So currently, there are no apps quite like this that integrate all 3 of our functions and that are sold directly to insurers. There are apps that have been successful where you can ask questions or have a community or have exercise, but none quite like us. So we are new on the market and don't yet have competition, but we anticipate that it would be picked up pretty quickly because we are really excited about the subject.
And I can add to that statement and say that insurers as well as public policies don't pay for the entire amount of care that is necessary in the realm of childbirth. And so
I'm sorry, that was the end of 2 minutes. We do need to stop here.
No worries.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next up in our list is COVID-19 locational scoring. And team number 002. So whenever you guys are ready, please unmute and start presenting. And I will start my timer when you guys do.
Please repeat the team number. Somebody happened to talk over it.
Oh, team 002.
Okay, hi everyone. We're COVID-19 locational scoring. And we can move to the next slide. So the primary issue is that during COVID, we want to social distance as much as possible. But the ease of social distancing is proportional to the ease of going to locations with few individuals and few prevalent cases. So if we want to go somewhere and we don't really think about where we're going ahead of time, it might be that we end up in a location that has a lot of people or a lot of cases. And so if we have a way to predict this beforehand, then that could definitely help in terms of preventing transmission. And as you can see, we have a lot of cases in New York, Texas, and New Jersey. So this is a definite need that we want to address. Standard mobile GPS options such as Google Maps or Apple Maps don't seem to easily integrate this. So this is what we wanted to solve. Next slide, please.
All right, so let's go straight into the MVP. So let's go ahead and use the app. So it instantly finds where we are. We're going to type in a location. We're going to hit search. It's going to give a score for the closest 3 Walmarts based off how many infections are in the county and how many people are at that specific Walmart. And the software can also deal with like nicknames or just short names. If you don't know how to pronounce something or you don't know how to spell something, it'll still do a best guess. So McD became McDonald's, and it's going to show us the first result. We'll just click go. It'll take us straight into Google Maps, straight in navigation. So it's easy and simple to use. And just as the third demonstration, we'll do a Home Depot. These are all in the San Francisco Bay area. And we'll change it to houses. So we can also do different languages rather than and still understand what you're trying to say. So we chose Sunnyvale. It's hard to see in the video, but that was the best choice for us to go to in terms of reducing our risk of exposure. Next slide, please. So using a K&N machine learning algorithm to see how infection rates have gone up over time versus how many people are outside in the businesses can help us better decide which locations are safest for you to go to. Best Time provides easy live location data, and our infection rates are from New York Times online sheets. Shows White typos, and the COVID GPS hands off to Google Maps or the user's GPS app, which is great because people can use their favorite navigation apps they're familiar with. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so in terms of how we want to scale up, we wanted to make our project open source as it is on GitHub. And in terms of what we wanted to do to scale up furthermore, we wanted to make it a nonprofit, so acquire fiscal sponsorship and join the Massachusetts Nonprofit Network, and hopefully partner with local organizations and community resources, because this would be helpful for the immunocompromised and even the elderly. Next slide.
Okay, that was the end of presentation time, but you guys still have 2 minutes for Q&A, which will start now.
This is Marjorie. I have a question. Given the sort of location counts and things, I'm wondering if you have taken into account the US population's particular resistance to any kind of contact tracing or activity tracing, and whether your solution might address or solve that.
Hi, Marjorie. That's a great question. I know people are especially sensitive about sharing any of their data. So this one just uses just COVID infections data and like anonymized location data that people are already giving up. So people don't have to give us any information to use our app.
Oh, sorry, I might have missed it. What is your business model? How are you going to commercialize this?
Yeah, if we can move back to the last slide. We hope to make it a nonprofit essentially, because with our business model, we don't have too many costs. It's just the cost of making the app and hopefully just advertising the application. So partner with other organizations, maybe other larger nonprofits who work on similar issues, and maybe get them to help with advertising. And so we can focus mostly on coding and the maintainability of the code. But that was our general idea.
Worst case, a banner ad at the bottom of the app would pull in any money that it costs for operating. Yeah.
Okay, that was the end of 2-minute Q&A. Thank you for presenting.
What was the team number again? I'm sorry.
The team number was 002. Next up is the Lifesavers team, and their team number is 036.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, whenever you're ready, please start the presentation.
Are the judges ready?
Ready, thanks.
Great. Hello, everyone. We're lifesavers. Our goal is to prevent suicides across the globe. Next slide. Suicide is a significant global problem. Roughly 1 person dies by suicide every 40 seconds. It's difficult to detect. Most people with intent do not disclose it. And the window to prevent suicide attempt is small. There's only a 10-minute window when someone transitions from thinking of suicide to acting on it. Next slide. Our solution is Lifesaver, a passive tracking app to detect acute behavioral changes immediately prior to a suicide attempt using commercially available activity trackers. Research tells us that these acute behavioral changes include sleep disturbances, agitation, and change in social connection. And these metrics can be monitored by personal mobile devices and wearable sensors. As a psychologist, I see many patients with depression and suicidal tendencies. Grace is one of my patients. She's 32, she's depressed, feeling isolated and unworthy. I can prescribe the Lifesaver app to Grace. Next slide. Let's take a look at what Grace's journey might look like. I would recommend the Lifesaver app during our therapy session. Grace would download the app and sync it to her Apple Watch and go about her day normally. Next slide. Grace was doing well, but then her mood declines. She starts feeling sad, starts having sleep disturbances and suicidal thoughts. She suddenly starts pacing back and forth and starts sending brief goodbye messages to her friends. Grace can't take it anymore and decides to end her life. Next slide. And because Lifesaver has been monitoring her sleep, activity, frequency, and content of her communication, it notices these sudden changes and intervenes before Grace can act. The suicide hotline calls Grace, one of her pre-approved friends is sent an alert and is able to reach out to her, or she's connected to emergency respondents. As a result, Grace stops her suicide attempt. And as her therapist, I receive an alert and I schedule an appointment to meet with her the next day. Next slide. Current apps on the market really only identify historical risk factors or depression symptoms and require user input, and they do not focus on acute short-term detection. And while Facebook uses AI to predict suicide risk from scanning user posts, our innovation is using continuous passive monitoring to detect acute suicidal risk, predicting and intervening minutes before someone attempts suicide. Next slide. To bring this to market, we'll first develop the app, and then we'll move to an observational study phase to collect data and build and refine our machine learning algorithm. Then move to a clinical trial to test the app and to gain FDA clearance. And then we'll progress to direct sales to providers and work towards obtaining a billing code or a new technology add-on payment, because ultimately we want this app to be reimbursable. Next slide. Suicide is a huge problem financially. It costs over $93 billion each year in the US alone. Preventing suicides can lead to huge cost savings. Our customers are clinicians and providers. Our business model is to work towards having our app be reimbursable for clinicians. Next slide. Thank you for listening. Help us help save people like Grace. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move straight on to Q&A.
What if the patient turned off the device?
That's a really good question.
Maybe to add to that, I think this is the reason for also having it installed on a smartwatch. So it's not just dependent on a mobile device that you can switch or switch off. It is something that's immediate. And actually the switching off of a phone in itself is a signal that can be detected and acted on.
So what about sediment? Like, what are other things that detections, like change in voice, visual, if they're looking at the phone, or, is there any other indicators or markers that that you're thinking about that could assist you in this device?
At this time, the research suggests, the indicators to short-term and more immediate suicidal risk are the ones that we identify. But I think when we're going through the observation and clinical trial phase, we certainly would gather more data to see if there are additional indicators of acute risk, such as the ones that you mentioned. I think those are certainly more correlates of suicide risk.
Yes, and to add to our answer, right now we're looking at the sleep patterns, the social media patterns, the call records, and along with that, the pulse rate and such physiological factors which are taken by the Fitbit or commonly available trackers.
Within your clinical research, have you also considered having this being distinguished as a software as a medical device through the FDA? And then the second piece of that question is, there exist sort of self-guided, modulated behavioral health tools. Have you considered plugging into those assets like Learn to Live or Silver Cloud?
I mean, there are different ways of going to market. The point is really, the aim is to have this as a prescribed application. So the aim isn't so much really to do self-help, but we're really targeting at-risk population. I don't know, what do you want to add to that, Joyce?
Okay, that was over time. I'm sorry. So we can't have the time to answer that question. But thank you so much for your presentation. We will move on to the next team.
Could we have the team number again?
Yep, that was Team B036 Lifesavers. And the next team up is Team B28 Dopa Express.
Please say the number one more time.
Hello?
For Lifesavers or the next team, Dopa Prex? For Lifesavers, it was Team 036. And for the next up team, who's going to present very soon, it's Team B028.
Thank you.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Are you the presenter for Dopa Express?
Yes.
Okay, let us know when you want to start.
I'll start right now. Okay. Hello, everyone. We're Dopa Express, and we want to talk to you about Parkinson's disease. Next slide. Let me begin by painting a picture of Parkinson's disease. Imagine you're a doctor. A patient sees you for the first time in months. He's getting worse. He tells you that he's been sedentary for the last couple months. He's despondent. Every day he loses just a little bit more. His speech is slurred, but he asks the same question each and every visit. What's the point, doc? Parkinson's affects 10 million people worldwide. Symptoms progress from slowed movements to freezing episodes to repeated falls. Is it any wonder that over 50% of patients are depressed? Next slide. They need a game, something fun to take their mind off the disease and depression, something cheap and affordable that's not an additional burden, something accessible that accommodates their range of movements, something that's intrinsically motivational, where they can try to improve their mobility every single day. Introducing Farmwell, a community farming simulation where players exercise to improve their farm and show it off to their friends. It's a free-to-play game focusing on education, exercise, improving speech, and practicing new coping strategies. Next slide. It requires nothing more than a webcam and a television to play. We use real-time pose estimation to accommodate a range of control schemes. Players indulge in farming-themed exercise with methods tailored for them. And most importantly, it's multiplayer. Each patient is encouraged by dozens around the world to exercise daily. Patients can even invite friends and family to their farms for a virtual hangout. No therapeutic game has ever had this level of persistence and social connection. Next slide. All of this is done with a doctor's supervision. Healthcare providers will receive curated motion sensor data, audio samples, and drug adherence information to determine if the disease is progressing. We put major emphasis on personalization. Doctors and caregivers can adjust a difficulty to ensure that all players are rewarded for their efforts and not their actions. Next slide. All of this is backed by research. Games have a positive physical and mental effect on their condition, and traditional physical therapy leads to patients getting bored and dropping out. Let's make a game for them. Next slide. We bring together all stakeholders. Patients get rewarded for exercise, doctors get to use data-driven techniques, and pharmaceutical companies will have an in-game presence to improve outcomes. Next slide. We have every reason to believe that our product fits well within the market. Traditional physical therapy is expensive and infrequent, and we want to focus on getting players up every single day with a tailored experience. Next slide. The technology is here. The time is now. What are we waiting for? Next slide. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for your presentation. Let's move on to Q&A straight away.
Could the game be modifiable to be chosen by the person as perhaps instead of farming, gardening, building a Lego structure with the grandchild, cleaning the house, something
Yes, we plan on having a suite of mini games, everything ranging from hiking to fishing to building things with your grandchild. In fact, we hope to encourage caregivers to play the game with them, which is why we focus so much on multiplayer.
Do you consider the game motivation to be competitive or collaborative? Because getting somebody else to help you and witness is could be a helpful step toward winning.
We consider it both competitive and collaborative. We've done research into game design, so we know our types of players. For competitive players, we ask that they invite their friends to their island so they can play games like chess or other exercise games. For more social players, they always have the chance to show off their farms and what they build. And we'll accommodate a range of experiences for families as well. Any other questions?
How does there's a lot of apps in the Parkinson space out right now, like Be Care Link as an example. They're doing things very similar, not using television and webcams, but using mobile. Like how is this sort of differentiated from the existing solutions?
Existing solutions require Parkinson's patients to hold things. This does not require any of that. They can get straight out of bed and they can go straight into the game. Additionally, this is multiplayer, so they have a chance to exercise with other people, so they no longer have to deal with loneliness and depression.
Okay, that was the end of the time for Q&A. That was team B028, Dopa Express. And next team is team VitaLive. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's team number B007.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. I'm ready to start. My grandmother recently had surgery for acute appendicitis and was admitted to the ICU. She was discharged in a stable state, but no one expected her to suddenly pass away 2 weeks later. There are 5 million ICU patients in the US who have a high mortality risk after discharge. These patients have a high risk of recurrent acute events and often many comorbidities and complications. As with the case of my grandmother, we still don't know the cause of her death. Moreover, ICU is costly and often traumatic for patients. Post-ICU follow-up is often minimal, yet the risk is high. So how can we ensure that post-ICU patients receive the help they need at their home and on time, as well as provide reassurance for family and reduce hospital burden? We propose VitalLife, a remote vital monitoring application system where the 6 vital signs will be continuously monitored through a customizable wearable kit. Along with EHR data, vital signs will be sent to a machine learning algorithm and predictions assistance will be made for acute events. Next. Research shows vital signs clinical data in AI has the potential to predict acute events hours before onset. In the case of sepsis, 1 to 4 hours before onset. Next. Our mobile application will feature vital monitoring, acute event detection, and alerting of emergency response services. Next. Along with data visualization, customizable risk assessment, questionnaires for symptom report, and a platform to facilitate communication between caregivers and clinicians. Next.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. We also surveyed our competition and found that they were severely lacking. We want to highlight that VitalLive is the only product that incorporates real-time monitoring of all 6 vitals with real-time risk assessments and EHR updates. Next, please. Next, please. We analyze our possible revenue streams. The bulk of revenue will come from patients and by extension caregivers who will pay a recurring subscription fee for the service and include sensors. Next, please. An additional revenue stream are hospitals and insurance companies, both of which have a financial interest in keeping patients from being readmitted to the ICU. Next, please. A quick analysis shows that assuming 10% market adoption at a $300 yearly cost, we can hit revenues of $120 million. Next, please. Next, please, as well. Finally, we can diversify revenue streams to include sale of data to insurance agencies and also by expanding to different demographics. Thank you. Next, please. So here we outline a business roadmap. It's 3 stages. Next, please. The first stage consists primarily of development, and our first major milestone will be getting FDA clearance. This is a class 2 device. Next, please. The second stage will be a pilot launch at a hospital, in particular Massachusetts General Hospital. And our second major milestone will be a 0.6% market adoption, where we estimate we will break even. Next, please. Finally, our third stage will be focusing on scaling the business and adopting different demographics. Next, please. We also describe a product pipeline here. Next, please.
That was the end of the 3-minute timeline, but you guys still have 2 minutes for Q&A, which starts now.
This is Uzair. I'm thinking about this through a provider lens and their workflow and avoiding data fatigue. So EHR integration was one of the main callouts you guys had as a differentiator from the competition. Let's say I'm using Epic in a hospital. What data would sync up into the EHR and how would it present to a provider?
So I'll take this question. I'm Prachi. I'm one of the physicians on the team, or I'm the only physician on the team. But basically, as a physician, I often get tired with having to obtain data, whether I'm in the office or in the hospital. I think it would be great to have this app collect the data and reduce burden on the nurses and MAs and myself for obtaining that data. And I think it would just be nice to have that data available if needed. This app is going to filter unnecessary data or data that's irrelevant. It's only going to filter through pertinent data that's relevant to us, that's of concern to us as healthcare providers. So I think it would actually help us.
Got it. And I saw a screen of a provider interacting with the platform. Is that something they might do in hyperspace and it coalesce into the platform, or would they have to open the platform separately?
I'd like for it to connect through to just a universal,
So we're thinking of having a desktop application so that the physician can look at all of their patients and just zoom in, and then a mobile application for patients and caregivers specifically.
Okay, that sounds good. That was the end of our Q&A. And that was team number B007.
Great.
Next up is team inactive, which has a team number of B033.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, let me know when the judges are ready.
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 Okay, sounds good. Start whenever you're ready, and I'll start the timer then.
Okay. Hello, my name is Ayush, and I'm representing Team Inactive. Health issues like obesity, heart disease, and diabetes have existed for a while. Now, these are becoming even more problematic as the pandemic forces millions to work from home. This promotes inactivity throughout people's lives in a stagnant lifestyle. This correlates directly to increased chances of obesity, heart disease, cancer, and other health issues in our target group of ages 40 to 60. Next. Our solution focuses on giving the user insight and automatic updates on their health and potential risks they have in life. Because more basic features like data collection and displaying data are already done. We simply collect the data and provide the real information that will help the users using our app instead of simply displaying it. Next. Our solution is simple. We collect all of the wearable data, and based off of that, we run a machine learning model on it using data provided by healthcare providers. Then using that data, we search for anomalies and we present it to the user. Next. Stakeholders are important to us. That's why we're focusing on someone like Alex. Alex, my neighbor, began to work from home since March 2020. He has gained weight and became inactive. He wants to become fit, so he engages with our app Inactive. Now, using positive reinforcement, we provide him with small tasks which give him gratification and allow him to achieve his fitness goals. Next. This is our app UI. It's simple and it provides information which is easy to use and easy to understand. Here, if you look at the guidance section, we can see that Alex has some problems with his walking. Using the Apple Watch, we're able to detect if someone has walking asymmetry, and we're also able to detect any problems in their fitness as well. Next. This is how our machine learning model works. We take generic data and combine it with wearable data to create a model. Next. Our target consumer is ages 40 to 60 and those who are working at home, and we found they're willing to pay a subscription fee. Next. Our business model is simple. We look for partners to help us develop our product and create data to run our machine learning model. Our revenue comes from monthly and yearly payments. Next. Our valuation, we did an extremely conservative estimate on a range of about $33.5 billion in the market. We saw even if we got a fraction of 1%, we were still able to make profit. Next. This is our implementation where we develop our app based on feedback by healthcare professionals. Then we release our free trial system and allow the user to pay for the system after they join. We'll be charging $9.99. After that, we'll be tweaking the app. Next. This is our diverse team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for finishing it right on time. Now we'll start the Q&A session.
This is Marjorie. I have a question. I think it's great that you're pulling together all these sources of data and recommendations. And weight loss is such a tough problem to tackle. And there's a lot of apps that have tried to tackle this, and it's a tough nut to crack. I think that presenting data and recommendations without also addressing motivation is going to put you in a tough spot. I'm curious if you're thinking about how to address motivation as well.
Yeah, so the way we're addressing that, if we could go back to slide number 6, on there we have, basically we're setting up a community or a point system where the users can basically through affiliate partners that advertise their apps through us, the points can equal incentives for the user based off of how much activity they're able to complete.
I'm interested in the measurement of asymmetry of walking. Is that available by the competition?
So right now, this is not available anywhere right now because this recently just came out. So what this does is it uses technology such as like the accelerometer and GPS all in the Apple Watch. And this is able to replicate the 6-minute walk test that's used by nurses and practitioners in hospitals. And they determine how fit someone is or how they're recovering. So based on how much distance you cover, we can tell a lot about your fitness level and how mobile you are. And on top of that, we can determine injuries in your legs as well.
Yeah, I'm curious here because I mean, words matter. One thing I'm hearing is recommendation. The other thing I'm hearing is health diagnostics as your differentiator on your platform. Apple and your competitors have stayed away purposefully from saying diagnostics because of liability. So like, is this actually diagnosing based on wider information or is it health tracking?
So this is health tracking and bringing awareness to potential problems and then allowing the user to present this data to someone who is a professional so they can actually diagnose it.
Okay, that was the end of time for Q&A. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Thank you.
Okay, next team up. First of all, the team that just presented was Team B033 inactive. And next team up is Disease Me, Team B001.
I'm sorry, one more time on the last one.
Yep, sure. Team number that's about to go up right now is Team B001.
The one before, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
033?
033, yes.
Got it.
Is the next team ready?
Yeah, I think there is one of us that should be allowed to be on mute. So it's
go ahead and
representatives.
unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
If
and
you are the
unmute
presenter,
yourself.
go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, Mayumi?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Are you guys all presenting?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. Whenever you're ready, start and I'll start my timer.
So we are Disease Me, a data solution for rare disease diagnostic.
Next, rare diseases affect 1 in 10 people in the US. Next. The problem is a long journey no person should undergo. There's 400 million people with rare diseases, 7,000 rare diseases, and it takes approximately 7 physicians in 5 years to get the correct diagnosis. Next. In my personal case, my doctor ignored half of the symptoms I was telling her, which ended up costing me who I was and costing the insurance millions. And this is until I found a new doctor who did listen. The consequences of the delays are I can't have children, I have anxiety and depression, and I have issues in my entire body because of the crutches and new mechanics of my body. So we want to empower patients to have greater control over the symptoms being used to diagnose them. Next. The late diagnosis cost insurance 1.5 million up until now, and another 140 per year going forward. Well, if they would have detected it earlier, it would have cost them 150, and I would be fully recovered. Next.
So what if we could empower patients with help from practitioners and insurance companies by using wearable to keep track on them and reduce the time to the right diagnosis? Next. So this is our approach from an inconclusive general practitioner appointment. Practitioners and insurance companies would suggest the use of wearable devices to gather follow-up data. Then we would run the data analysis along with text mining and then build ML models to suggest a diagnosis. Next. We will study the case, the Brugada syndrome. It's a cardiac asymptomatic disease that may lead to sudden death and it's detectable with ECGs. This disease may go unnoticed in a GP appointment since symptoms can come and go. By using ECG next data gathered from wearables. Next. Yep. And along with, one before. Along with the symptoms that the patient would give us, we would cross this data with the text mining database that we will build and then run ML models to it. Next.
The business opportunity is to help payers save money from this delayed diagnosis. Estimates show that over $1 billion lost in the US just from this delayed diagnosis. We will have a software as a service, charge $3,000 per patient, and make $150 million in revenues. We have a team that has rare disease expertise and data science expertise, and we're ready to serve the patient.
Okay, that was the end of 3-minute presentation time. Now we'll go straight into Q&A.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that the patient obviously would want to, have the right information, but I'm having a hard time understanding, like, there's multiple stakeholders here, but who would really have the biggest pain and problem that you guys can uniquely solve here? I mean, I get the obvious, the patient, but I'm getting the message that there's a, someone else has a bigger, deeper pain here.
The insurance would benefit the most from saving money on patients who keep going back to the practitioners for the same issue.
Would you consider in the function of this device incorporating training of medical students, residents, physicians in identification of rare diseases by collection of symptoms?
Yeah, I mean, the text mining techniques, this database built upon text mining would have all the information since it would come from scientific articles and online resources. So we would account for that.
The insurance companies, though, ultimately are paying approximately $150,000 in drug costs per orphan drug patient. If these are patients that did not show symptoms till later in life, they're lost for up to 10 years. So every treatment, people have gotten like surgeries for appendicitis, et cetera. These are the dollars that they have case management programs for. And so we're the insurance fee for them so they can find those patients earlier. And of course, drug companies also, I launch drugs, we can't find those patients very often. So there's a lot of people in the system that would benefit from having treatment pathways more clear.
So how confident are you that the diagnosis you're giving the patient is correct and that the patient will do something right with it? Wouldn't you rather give this to the clinician who's more qualified?
Yeah, that's up to the clinician on ultimate work.
Sorry, we're out of time and we don't have time to answer that question fully. Sorry about that. The team who just presented was Team 001. And the next team up is University of Mind, which is Team B046.
Hi.
Hi, are you the presenter for University of Mind?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that sounds good. Are the judges ready for the next presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, then. Whenever you're ready, you can start presenting.
Okay. So we are the University of Mind. Next slide, please. So this is Anita, a typical college student who's stressed, not getting enough sleep, not getting enough exercise. Now, what if we could help her track her stress? Or maybe better yet, what if we could help the university help her? Next slide, please. So Anita, this is an issue not unique to Anita, but experienced by a lot of university students, managing stress, either due to a lack of knowledge of the resources available or the stigma attached to seeking help. Many students don't get the access to help that they need. And even when they do manage to seek help from qualified professionals, for example, students might not be fully aware or might not keep tabs of what triggers these emotions. Recently, since the 80s, researchers have looked into using biological measures to help find underlying reasons behind elevated psychological moods. Next slide, please. And in this vein, lots of devices have been developed: wristbands, armbands, watches, and so on. But in the context of helping universities help their students, would this be the best way that universities could distribute, for example, something to their students? Cost-wise, maybe not. This is quite costly. Next slide, please. So an alternative option might be to look at what apps that are available. So yes, we did do some market research, and there are apps that track trends in behavior, but caveats to this: requires a lot of user input, not very user-friendly, and doesn't really include physiological, and even if it is automatically included, doesn't really include physiological indicators of stress. Next slide, please. And so this is where we come in. We'd like to develop an app that uses physiological indicators to help people find trends in their moods, and optionally to provide self-reported input. So at trigger points, for example, the app would prompt the user, "How are you feeling?" And this requires very minimal user input, maybe a Likert scale of some sort. Next slide, please. So our solution with this app also includes rough screening. If a negative trend is observed, they might provide suggestions on top of alerting resources by the university. This can also be paired with watches and other devices, but only if people have those. So it's not a requirement. Next slide, please. That's a mock-up. Next slide, please. And this would be targeted to the university. Next slide, please. And
okay, that was the end of time. We'll go straight into Q&A.
I noticed that you're monitoring sleep. That's like an HRT device someone would connect, and it becomes dependent on someone connecting those devices to measure things like that.
Yeah, so we were hoping to start with the activity monitoring, the exercise and step tracking. There are proxies for sleep tracking or apps for sleep tracking, but you are correct that the number of physiological indicators using just a smartphone is somewhat limited, especially for any kind of passive collection. But there are additional options. You can do, heart rate detection on an ad hoc basis using smartphones, for example.
And with optional user input, if they do detect something that's out of line with baseline behavior, there is the option to input how they feel. Over the long term, if needed, they can request, lots of universities, for example, have additional devices that students can take out on loan, and this can be used to supplement the data that they have. But this is a good broad screening measure, and it's better than not having anything.
Have you looked into the competition in terms of, I saw the ones you listed, but there's things that are like self-guided modules like Silver Cloud that would do a lot of what the platform is suggesting, but also guide them through modules to address if an issue did present, type of thing.
Oh, we're sorry, we're out of time and we don't have time to answer that question. But that was team 031. Wait, no, not team 031. That was team 046, University of Mine. And the next team coming up is Smart Track, which is team 031. Are the presenters from Smart Track ready?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, that sounds good. Are the judges ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. Start whenever you're ready.
Hi, so we're Team Smart Track. Next slide, please. So epilepsy is one of the most common neurological disorders, and it primarily affects infants and children. This disease is characterized by random and uncontrollable seizures, which can result in injury to the patient themselves and also injury to those around the patient. We know from previous studies that stress is a direct trigger in patients with epilepsy to trigger epileptic episodes. There's a need for early prediction and potentially the prevention of epileptic episodes. Next slide, please. So our solution is twofold. The first is to create a wearable monitor that tracks various vital signs as a means of seizure prediction. The next step is to link this to an app we've created that would alert the user of an incoming seizure, remind the user to take any medication, and also open a pre-selected app to help calm the user and reduce stress, hopefully preventing the onset of a seizure. Next slide, please. So our hardware monitor would track heart rate, oxygen levels, and skin conductance to detect seizure activity. This would link to our app, which would send those signals to the user, alerting them about the upcoming seizure, to take medication, and also to reduce stress level by opening an app selected by the user when they download the software. Next slide, please. This mocks up our prototype. We would also use a machine learning algorithm to improve the accuracy of the seizure detection software. Next slide, please. Our main competitor is the Empatica Embrace 2, which is also a wearable monitor that detects seizures. However, the advantages of our device are we use a combination of different metrics, hopefully improving the accuracy of seizure predictions. And we also have direct patient intervention by alerting the patient, reminding them to take medication, and trying to reduce stress level in the hope of preventing a seizure from occurring. Next slide, please.
And this is our current analysis of the obtainable markets and the available markets. Based on this, we are looking at approximately a $30 million annual market. Next slide, please. Our current hypothesis, our current business model is to sell directly to patients. We will likely charge for down payment and monthly subscription fees for the app, allowing us to be sustainable. We're also planning to partner with hospitals initially. For scalability, we will add more language features to expand across geographical locations. And given that it is a virtual platform, we think that we are poised to do this. Next slide, please. Given that this will be a relatively new tool, our market adoption plan will be in 3 stages. The first will be research collaborations with universities and institutions to prove our hypothesis, as well as engage with key opinion leaders. The second will be to publish our findings to increase awareness and confidence. Lastly, we would like to have patients share their current success stories with Smart Track system to gain a larger customer base. Next slide, please. And here are our team members. Thank you for your time, and we would like to thank all the head staff, mentors, and everyone who provided guidance and influence. We're happy to take any question now.
I'm interested in the prevention part. Is it just the making sure that the patient is taking their medications, or is there more?
So there are some medications that, if a patient is on this medication, that they can take to help prevent the onset of a seizure. So if a patient is prescribed this medication and we are able to alert this patient of a potential upcoming seizure, there are medications on the market that could, potentially work to counteract that seizure from occurring if they're taken at the right time.
Also, to add to that point, there are more to that, because on top of adding it, what this really does is for stress management, and we know that stress can trigger seizures. So there's two goals. The short-term goal is, of course, to soothe the patient when they know that a seizure is oncoming, so that they are not as anxious. But the long-term goal is to hopefully develop a behavioral change. So, for example, if the patients know that they're experiencing additional level of stress, maybe due to lack of sleep, or like there's particularly triggering events, then they'll be more likely to be aware of it, and that hopefully this app will be able to intervene and soothe them accordingly. So yeah, basically it's a long-term goal.
Having lost an acquaintance to an epileptic episode that was accompanied by an accident, I'm curious, will the device be able to train the person in the signs that they may have better get themselves in a safe situation when they're not using the device?
I think that depends on the user itself, because
I'm sorry, that is the end of time for this Q&A session. But that was Team Smart Track, right? Team Smart Track, Team B031. And the next team up is Team By Your Side, which is team number B039.
Yeah, I'm there to pitch from the
By Your Side team.
39. Yeah. So By Your Side, a clinical device package for at-home monitoring of vital parameters. Next slide, please. Next slide. The problem is the overburdening of the hospitals and the lack of access to monitor the various parameters. Could you go to the previous slide? You just skipped to 2 slides. The device not only helps in tackling the urban problems, but also the rural problems. The basic problem is the overburdening of the rural ICU setup, the healthcare setup, where ICU beds are less than the requirement, and also the lack of proper infrastructure to monitor the data. Next slide, please. Next slide. A solution it basically tackles the infrastructure at the primary level, the lack of infrastructure at the primary level, and also allows remote monitoring, so that the overburdening of the ICUs can be managed. Next slide, please. Our solution bridges the gap between the doctor and the patient, as a lot of telehealth platforms are emerging as well. The greatest need is to track the various vital parameters to aid the doctor monitor this data. Next slide, please. These are the vitals which we would monitor during via our app. And the next slide, please. So a business model is we would partner with the government hospitals and private hospitals, and also the telehealth platforms for using our kits to help the people in the remote monitoring, and also the complete setup would be incentivized. So for using that, the people would get discounts on their healthcare purchases, and also the data would be monetized by like subsidy would be provided on the kits for sharing the data on consent for the research purposes. Next slide, please. So the best part of the bio side is that all of the existing devices either don't have the all of the existing capture all of the vitals required, or they are not remote, while bio side tackles the both problems. Next slide, please. These are the next steps, the timeline we are planning for the next 1 year. And next slide, please.
Okay,
This is our
that
team.
was the end of your presentation period. Now we have 2 minutes for Q&A.
Any questions? Could you go to the next slide also, if the appendix? Yeah, this was the device which we developed during the time, and we also have a working video prototype of that. So it basically sends the plasmographic
I'm sorry,
data
you
to
can't continue the presentation during
the
the Q&A period. You need to wait for judges to ask you questions.
Some telehealth visits have to be done through the electronic medical portal on a smartphone rather than Zoom or Starleaf or whatever do you anticipate being able to dovetail with those systems?
I can help answer that question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. So we plan to partner with existing telehealth platforms because we won't be offering video calling or telehealth visits through our own app. So if you go back to the timeline, we've included that we want to collaborate with existing telehealth platforms like Practo, which are already established in India. Does that answer your question?
Is the magic juice here the device? Is it, you know, how you guys are synthesizing the data? Because I mean, a lot of this, as I see it, from the indicators that you're aggregating from ECG to PPE, et cetera, I mean, this exists already. So what's novel about this?
Right. The novel is that we are going to bring all of these sensors together for a composite device that can be placed in the home of the patient and transmit data to a cloud that then goes to the physicians.
Yeah,
only
basically
is triggered.
ICU by your side. ICU by your side.
Yes, like I would like to add on to this stuff, like since we are actually facing a huge scarcity of the ICU beds in the government hospital right now, so we are converting stadiums into like
I'm sorry,
like
that was
places for
the
this.
end of the time for the Q&A session. That was Team By Your Side, Team B039. And next up is Team Linda. We're down to our last 3 teams, which is Team Linda is team number Team B013. Hello, are you one of the presenters for Linda?
Hi, I'm the presenter for Linda.
Okay, that sounds good. Are the judges ready?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds good. Whenever you're ready, you can start.
Great. Thank you. Hi. Today, I want to tell you about Linda, a better way to assess mobility through peer-to-peer support for adults over 65 that are at risk for decreased mobility. But first, I want to introduce you to our inspiration, the real Linda. Linda is 65 years old and at risk for mobility impacting peripheral neuropathy. She recently started seeing a physical therapist to maintain her mobility. Her PT is concerned about not being able to keep an eye on her in the months between visits. Next slide. Linda is one of the 49 million US adults at risk for decreased mobility. Decreased mobility often isn't noticed until falls begin to happen. PTs struggle to serve their patients since they do not have any insight into their at-home mobility data. Next slide. Our solution addresses this from a preventative perspective. It's designed to help PTs address the lack of mobility data about their patients between visits and catch the slow decline early on. We're providing peer-based support for older adults that are at risk for decreased mobility, starting with those with diabetes. When Linda begins using our solution, her peer will visit her in her home and then capture important information to send to Linda's PT via InterSystems. Next slide. Our solution is easy to use. Patients schedule peer-based support services. Through the peer-based support system, we ensure accountability, help with ease of access, and address isolation. Next slide. Home-based mobility assessment data is collected using AR-based mobile tools. These are simple assessments, including gait speed, a timed up and go test, and stride variability. AR allows a non-clinician to capture clinical level data. Here's what the timed up and go assessment looks like. Next slide. And here you can see how a gait speed test can be measured. Next slide. It is then shared with PT so that they can identify risks and tailor their treatment plans for their patients. Next slide. Our solution costs $30 per visit, pay as you go, and is paid for by the patients. We also have a subscription-based pricing option, which allows more member perks. Next slide. We are going to begin by focusing on Massachusetts, since they have direct access to physical therapists without needing a referral. It's also a great model for the other 27 states that have direct access to PTs. Next slide. Over the next 12 months, we hope to build a minimum viable product, design and run feasibility studies, and then expand to a group of providers and peers within pilot communities. Next slide. We are excited about helping PTs make more informed, personalized decisions and allow people who are at high risk for falls to live independently longer. Thank you. Questions now.
What was your thinking behind choosing a peer? I don't know if this is a volunteer or a paid unlicensed aide or what to do these measurements versus telling the patient that if they meet certain criteria, they need to have a second person there during those assessments, and they could pick a family member or friend.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to take this one. So the initial problem we identified with physical therapists by talking to them and from the workshops yesterday was the difficulty in getting in-home realistic data between visits and the accuracy of that data. So we acknowledge that there are two ways we could do this. We know today patients are reluctant to go into the hospital or to see their providers. We wanted to collect it in the home setting. And the way to enable us to collect that would be through augmented reality technology. But the difficulty in having someone operate that themselves, we wanted to give to a peer or someone else who could operate it for them. So we knew they had tech literacy and the ability to operate this equipment.
Tim or Anissa, can you speak on what the AR tech is? Is this like HoloLens or is it mobile AR? What are you guys thinking there?
Yeah, we're thinking mobile AR, and we're going to control based on probably iOS. So iOS ARKit 4 or up to 2, actually. We've built previous applications with similar technology that we have a patent on at the company where I work in the disease management space for managing multiple prescription medications. So we really want to control the product that's being used and in the hands it's being used in.
And is there use cases past mobility that you guys are cogitating against, or is it mainly mobility and that's the end goal?
Mobility for now, and specifically with diabetes, just given the risks associated with that population within mobility, I think once we understand how to improve those two metrics that PTs say would be helpful for them, we can figure out where else this might go on the peer model. We've seen the peer model be successful in grandkids on demand, for example, with Papa. We really want to leverage that to be able to grow local communities.
That was the end of time for Q&A session. Thank you for your presentation. That was Team Linda, Team B013, and next up is Team CaresPack, which
also, this is wrong. I don't think it's Hygieia next. I think it might be.
Oh yeah, I think I know what happened. There was a double submission for Hygieia,
yeah,
and the algorithm kind of mixed it up. So the next team up is actually AFRIMED. And CaresPack is Team 048.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
So whenever you're ready.
Okay. So yeah, hello everyone. I'm Sahar Swamicha representing Team CaresPack. Community to keep you healthy. Next. According to the statistics, there are around more than 10 million of type 1 diabetes cases. And every year, there are more than 1 million cases added to the count. Juvenile diabetes, being lifelong diseases, need a proper health management, as approx 70% people suffering are prone to death due to the disease. And the statistic says that every second, one person is 10 to die because of diabetes, and juvenile holds a major crunch of it. Next. One of the mentors in this MIT hackathon, Dr. Kelly Gurley, shared her personal experience with us, being a mother of 5-year-old diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and few of the concerns and needs which she felt were how to manage the regular activity and diet of her daughter, where to get emotional support, and how to help in socializing. So the major stakeholders, all of them, need this to be ensured that patient has a long, enjoyable life with the disease. Next. So here are the solutions we are aiming to offer, ranging from complete end-to-end health management to enjoy the ability to socialize and learn from peers and experienced ones. Next. Here comes our solution, broadly bifurcated into 3 parts. First being creating awareness. One of my uncle, whose son was just 9 years old, got ill, and within 5 days, he passed away. The death was so sudden, even the doctors and experts couldn't figure out the cause. It was just after the death diagnosis, it came out that the reason was juvenile diabetes. A proper awareness and pre-diagnosis could have actually saved his life. Next. Next part of the solution is socializing and building a community of diabetes patients, their caregivers, doctors, and experts to help each other, share their experiences, and learn from others. Next. And most of the focused and more personalized part of our application being the health manager, helping user to manage their condition in as interactive as possible in a game way. Next. So this is our execution plan, stating, next. Yeah, so this is our execution plan, which is stating our value previous one. Which is stating our value proposition and the revenue generation model and depicting the expected revenue values generated from minimum subscription fee, that is $10 per month, from the users to user, and different plans for the other stakeholders. Next. So here is our first year roadmap, as it is already started with ideation and need gathering, aiming to provide complete personalized end-to-end health management services to collaborate and health expenses management system to cover
That
complete
was the end of presentation time, but you still have 2 minutes for Q&A,
yeah,
which will start
next,
now.
Yeah, so this is our team. So any questions?
Hi there, it's Marjorie. I'm just wondering if the primary audience for this tool is families and or caregivers, and to what degree also would you also be addressing the actual juvenile patients themselves?
Correct. So actually majorly, major focus will be on the juvenile patients, and they will be utilizing this application to manage themselves. But a lot of time, many motivational factors are required for the families and for the caregivers as well. So that is how they will be engaged in the community learning, and the second part of our solution, that is the socializing. I hope it's given your answer.
So Harsh, it's really difficult to engage juveniles and children on platforms. We notice this in the psychology world as well. Like, how do you think you might address those issues of engagement?
Okay, that's a great question, sir. So what we are thinking is to have exactly a content creation platform, exactly like some other platforms which are there. We can take inspiration from them, and incentive based or motivational based content and other fields will be created regularly from the diabetic people itself, to just keep engaging people out there and help other with their experiences. And so that is how we have thought of as of now. But yeah, counseling services will be provided as hand. So yeah, that's one part of it.
Okay, that was end of the time for Q&A. Thank you for your presentation. That was Team CARES Pack, Team 048. Next team up, which is the last team, is Team AfriMed, which is Team B021.
Hello, I am Cynthia and I'll be representing Team AfriMed alongside my team members. Can I start? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. You can start when you're ready.
Awesome, I can start now. Next slide. In pursuit of better living standards, the youth in developing countries migrate to urban areas, and thus they leave the elderly alone, lonely, and vulnerable. 1 month ago, I got a call from my grandmother, and she had fallen down as she was fetching firewood. She broke her legs. She had to travel all the way to the city so that she could be treated. And she was amputated, and that made us very sad. At the time of discovery, it was after 5 hours when my grandpa found her, and that made us very, very sad. And she has, after being hospitalized for 2 weeks, she had to come back to the city for regular checkups, and she also forgets her checkups, and she forgets to take her medication. Now, this makes us very, very sad because it delays her progress in improvement. Thank you.
Next slide. So we at AfriMed have come up with a smartwatch which will pick up the bare signals like the pulse rate, SpO2, temperature, blood pressure, and respirations. So these signals will be conditioned and relayed to our user app as well as a web server where it will be analyzed and observed for trends over time. So if the trends deviate from the normal range, a notification will be sent to the family as well as the data will also be sent to a hospital where it will be analyzed by a medical practitioner, give a response as a push notifications such as drugs to be bought, drug time reminders, hospital and any other calls of action. In addition, the smartwatch also comes with a panic button for immediate care in case of emergencies, also an accelerometer and a gyro for long-term conditions like PD, as well as medical emergencies like fall detection and stroke. Thank you. Next slide.
So our business model, we are looking to keep partners of the health medical insurance firms and hospitals and government health plans. We're looking at a subscription type of a package whereby there's a sign-up cost of 30,000 Kenya shillings, that is $300, and a subscription fee of $5 per month. So basically we have the platform, so you're able to connect the old people to the health system, the insurance firms, and also we are sending notifications to them as reminders for medications and clinic schedules. In the meantime, we're investing on the infrastructure. So our key customers are health people, elderly and senior citizens in rural areas, and adults in urban areas who have relatives in rural areas. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll take questions for AfriMed.
Would she have had a reliable source of electricity to recharge the device?
So yeah, the device is fully, we have taken care of the issue about power. So what the device does is, unlike the normal watches, it optimizes power. For example, it only transmits when it's necessary. It only transmits when there's an alarm to transmit. And also we have optimized it to be rigid, to survive the harsh conditions, and also have long battery life so that the elderly can stay with it. Also, one of the key factors is that when the battery is low, it can send a notification to the health system, the nearest clinic, and tell them to check on the elder person because he might not be knowing how to charge. They can send a response team to see what is happening with the battery. Yes.
Do you think it would be possible to arrange training in the use of the device by someone in the patient's own culture?
Yeah, so also maybe it didn't mention this, but it has language NLP whereby you can speak to, apart from the notification from the schedules, you can talk to the device. so that you get feedback from the hospitals. And also when during signups, we actually train people how to use it. And we also organize community visits whereby we are able to visit and train them more on how to use the device. But basically it's something you just wear, and your relatives in urban areas have apps whereby they can follow up, and also the clinics can be following up and insurance firms can be following up. Yes. Any other question? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, if there's no other questions for Team AfriMed, that was the last team that was going to present today. So congrats on everyone for finishing their presentation and making it through the majority of this hack.